Welcome today. It's an absolute honor to have the CEO, Mr. Lejake, here with us today. And there's a few questions that the boxing public would probably like to know, myself included. And let's just get those sort of out of the way. The first thing was the announcements that sort of boxing gyms were able, combat gyms were able to open again. I just want to get your position on how fast that procedure is going to come, or the process is going to come across, and when are they actually open?
Well, I think the important thing to note is that the situation remains fluid. 1 minute, things are positive, and then then the statistics start going up. So if you listen to what the provincial government of Gauteng said yesterday, and the other sound bites that are coming out of the Department of Health, it sort of creates an atmosphere that you must take note of. But in terms of practical and confirmed things, on the 28th of May, on the 30th of May, the minister announced that combat sport might be given permission to start training, provided that we submit our operational plans. And then on the 11th of June, the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture gazetted the directions for sport, arts, and cultural activities. And in terms of that directions, we had 14 days within which to submit our operational plan. We did submit that operational plan, I think it was on the 25th of June. Subsequent to that, we received a follow-up question on some of the information that was not too strong in our operational plan, particularly around, okay, this is how you intend to mitigate the spread of coronavirus, this is how you seek to detect. But you must then tell us when a boxer has tested positive, or when a boxer has failed a screening test, which happens daily. What becomes your procedure and what type of support you give to the boxer? So with all that, the ball is in the court of the minister at this point in time. We're hoping that at any point we might get an announcement that would say that Boxing South Africa, we have evaluated your plan. We are convinced that it's a sound plan and you've got a green light to resume training. And I think from the time that we get that green light, we'll probably need about a week to then distribute the material that we need the gyms to have. And we as Boxing South Africa would be helping the gyms with. And we'll also probably within that week also need to then get the boxers to undergo testing. Because remember, for every boxer, trainer, manager to go back into the gym, they need to have tested. And obviously, there's third-party dependencies because you need to go to the laboratory, they take your whatever, and then 3 days later, maybe you get the results. We get to file those results, and we give a green light for the gym to resume.
So that's the next thing. So firstly, as you said, we need to get the gyms tested, and there's a whole process behind it. But the next thing is there's already been tournaments that have been announced in the future, and if we can't get into training, surely those tournaments just can't go ahead as of yet. The fact that they've been announced, is there what's your stance on that?
Well, I think everybody that has made any announcement, they've indicated that it is subject to confirmation of. So these are scenario plannings, and it's not a bad thing. In my view, you actually need our promoters to start visualizing the future, because we need to start thinking about boxing post-COVID-19. And those have been announced as plans and intentions, but we know for a fact that nothing has been submitted to Boxing South Africa for approval yet, because we as Boxing South Africa can also start acting upon or processing those as tangible tournament applications. But this different scenario planning, trying to be optimistic and trying to reduce the time between getting started once we get the approval. So that is how we view those tournaments, that they've been announced, but it's subject to whatever approvals that will then make it possible for them to happen.
All right. And the next thing is, obviously with COVID, as you said, you have to be innovative with the times. We're looking towards the South African Boxing Award. Will that be at an actual location, or will it be online? Is there any confirmation as to what's going to happen with that yet?
No, that's the detail you are not going to win. You're not going to get that detail from this interview. What I think we know for a fact.
Yeah, I'm trying to get some exclusives, surely.
I know. No, what I know for a fact that we're going to get is that the nomination process is open. the boxing awards are, the architecture is designed on 3-point or 3-phase rollout. There's this phase which started on the 8th of June, will close on the 20th of July, a call for nomination. And then there's a second phase, which is the announcement of the nominees. And then we go into popularizing those nominees. Then the last stage is what I think you were asking, the presentation ceremony itself. What form will it take? What I can tell you for a fact is that we've got a difficult balancing act in our hands at the moment. We've called out for nominations. Whether we'll go beyond first phase or not, I think the board will give us direction on that. But the board is meeting on the 11th of June, next week, Saturday. So it will be on time before even the end of the first phase call for nomination. But there's different scenarios on the board. But what I know for a fact is that whatever resources that we have, we're going to prioritize directing them towards a resumption of boxing training and boxing competition. So what you're going to start seeing this year, you're going to start seeing Boxing South Africa literally trying to put resources in the hands of individual licensees, particularly our boxers. Because let me give you an example. A test for COVID-19 can range between anything 700 to sometimes 1.2. If you have to get 709 boxers tested within a period of a week so that they can all resume training, probably 15% of our population might afford that, the rest won't. So you are likely to start seeing us assisting boxers directly by paying for them so that they can undergo COVID-19 tests and they can all resume training around the same time. That way you don't have people who've got advantage because they could start training earlier because they had money when others did not. So we need to balance that type of thing. And if we go that route, the final stages of the boxing awards might then suffer because you will end up redirecting those resources from boxing towards assisting the resumption of training and competition. So as a result, that's why I'm saying I will not comment on what will happen beyond the 20th of July. What we now know and what is certain is that we are heading towards the 20th of July. Then the next announcement will be made before the 20th of July about what happens with phase 2 and phase 3.
I want to go on to a sort of a lighter note and maybe more of a sort of a motivational note, is where you're talking about how does South Africa produce, and I know everyone that's in office at BSA always wants to produce world champions. It's no secret you guys want to have a successful time in the office. How do we produce more world champions?
Let me tell you what I think is of importance. There's multiplicity of things. It's not one thing that you can do to produce world champions. There's an array of things that you must do all at once. Firstly, you need to create an enabling environment, and that is the legislative and the regulatory part that we've spoken about a lot of times. That updating our regulations will make it easy for career progression of boxers. For example, some of the things that are in the regulations that make it a bit difficult to become a national champion because of the 3-fight rule, those are examples. But secondly, I think our model of more especially how boxing is funded by government on a sponsorship basis needs to be changed. At this point in time, if you look at the money flow from mostly the municipalities and the departments, the bulk of that money goes directly to the promoter, and the assumption is that it will then trickle down to the gyms. We've done inspections of gyms. You basically have got two economies within the boxing sector. You've got boxing, South African boxing at tournament level. And then you've got South African boxing Monday to Friday at the gym level. With the type of facilities that we have, training facilities, with the type of support that trainers and managers get, it then explains why only a few of our boxers tend to go all the way up, because the support at that development level is not optimal. And I think Boxing South Africa also must take responsibility for that. We've got in excess of 200 gyms, and some of them are in a state that is, it's heartbreaking. So that needs attention. But then thirdly, our relationship with world bodies matter, because we know that career progression into the global space in the boxing sector, it's a product of networks, it's a product of lobbying and advocacy. And Boxing South Africa as an organization, we've not been present in a structured way in that space. I mean, when we went to the WBC convention in November last year, It was the first time in probably 8 years to a decade, that Boxing South Africa had representation at a convention. Because normally when we have representation is when an individual licensee has gone, or when one of our board members who happen to be also a board member in one of the world bodies attends. So we need to lobby in that space so that when the rankings of the different world bodies gets debated, you've got Boxing South Africa there with a list of its 17 champions, male and female, lobbying for that. Then when you do that, you open space for your boxers and your talent to start growing into the space. So I think that's why I'm saying it's a multiplicity of things, but the duty of Boxing South Africa is to create an enabling environment for that talent to thrive. And then the promoters will then come in, augment that space by doing their smart footwork, which is the business of any promoter.
It's going to be super difficult at the moment. Obviously, you say you want to lobby with like the major sanctioning bodies, and you want to get the rankings for our fighters. But you know, in the current circumstances, we can't actually do much in terms of travel. We can't be matching against international opponents. So it's sort of local matchups now. And I wanted to focus on the SA title because that's sort of going to come to the, you know, like the main focus at the moment. Like, how great can we make? How many great opponents can we put for the SA title going into this, you know, this phase?
Okay, I think in my response earlier, I was probably just talking futuristically without any specific timelines to it. But you are right, you've got timelines to it. You're going to have to think about the COVID-19 environment where you still have got these restrictions on travel, on interprovincial travel, probably international travel and all that. So it will be restrictive. But we still need to think on the long term. So what I was talking about is pretty much on the long term. When it comes to the immediate term, with all these restrictions applicable, again, it's a fluid environment. We know that when we get to level 1, interprovincial travel will be possible. We're not clear yet which of the international travel will be allowed. But with the restrictions, South Africa might open its borders, but other countries might not. So you've got a problem there. Your best bet is going to be the work that we are doing now with the ministry of fast-tracking the amendment of the regulations. Because with the amendment of the regulations, you're going to have much more space to maneuver. I mean, right now, you've got people in the ranking. Some of them can't challenge for the national title because they do not have the 3 fight in a specific weight. Then you've got a situation of the inventory. Why should I challenge for a South African national title when part of the expense of the promoter don't include a belt? So I fight and I walk away without a belt. Yet, if it is another well body, they walk away with a belt. So in the current year, we've budgeted to at least produce, I think, it would be anything in the region of 20 to 30 belts to deal with the backlog. But again, with something that links with the well bodies. We've started this now, placed it on record with the WBA, placed it on record with IBF, and also with the WBC. You need premium for being a South African champion. If you are a South African champion and there's no recognition at all accorded to you by any of the world bodies, even if it is just an attempt to recognize that you are a champion and therefore you're going to become, let's say, number 101 on the rankings, or you're going to be featured somewhere, then there's value in you challenging for a title of South Africa. So that work and that relationship with world bodies, it would again still come and assist us to say, listen, man, why do you have to go and fight for a regional title of a world body when you can still challenge for a South African national title and know that by virtue of you having challenged for a South African national title, you can be considered for, even if it's a silver or, you know, an international title of a world body, because your being a national champion is recognized by world bodies. So at the moment, that disjuncture is disadvantaging us. And for me, that is the major structural thing that needs to be sorted by inter-organizational agreement between South Africa and the world bodies.
I'm going to go on to my last question now. And it's known now that fights will take place, well, at least for the interim, as we were mentioning timelines, in front of people. No audience. There's just going to be television for those fortunate promoters that can get television. But what about the guys that, and I don't know if you guys have any, like you guys as being BSA, having any sort of responsibility on the spot, but the promoters that can't get television, for example, how would that work? Because they rely on their gates, so to speak, their tickets at the venues.
Well, it's something that we are applying our mind to. We've got now, after about a year without negotiations with SABC, we've resumed the negotiations. There's now the new head of sport at the SABC who's very passionate about boxing. We've already commissioned a study between SABC and Boxing South Africa for us to come up with a better commercially viable model for SABC to go back into boxing. And SABC's intention is that when they go back, they must go back big. So what that means is that over and above your super sport involvement in boxing, the re-emergence of SABC would ease that load. But that will still not be enough. What is now a principle for us as Boxing South Africa is that you can't have these tournaments that happen in the arena without audience and without TV coverage. So we need cheaper ways of producing or covering our own tournaments. And from Boxing South Africa's side, you're going to start seeing us now investing towards that. Because, there's a production by Hawk Makepula, Mbuyekezo. They on their own are able to cover content and find a way to broadcast it. So non-traditional methods of covering and broadcasting boxing are the way to go. Because if we do not do that and we keep relying on your established major TV sport houses, it's not going to assist us. It takes the power away from us. So BSA's point now is that while we can still do this work with your SABC and your SuperSport and whoever else, we need to strengthen local capacity for boxing tournaments to be covered and to be broadcast, even if it can be through live streaming and all that, but that's what we're going to do. And when I said that what COVID-19 has now assisted us to, as Boxing South Africa, start getting involved in the value chain of boxing, assist the gyms and the promoters who's putting together a tournament, but he can't afford a broadcast. If from our side, we're able to meet him halfway to make sure that that content is covered, that's what we will do.
Well, I fully agree with you on that last point. Streaming services are going to soon become, the forefronts of it. Television might sort of subside, just like radio, just like television took over radio. Online might take over television. So I think that the more and more South African companies that sort of look towards that are finding ways to the future to broadcast for us. But anyway, that concludes the interview, and I'd like to thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute honor to be speaking to you.
Thank you very much, my brother. I appreciate the opportunity.